I'm Chelsea Ackroyd, Chelseaackroyd.
Where are you based?
I'm in Salt Lake City at the University of Utah.
Amazing people there on the dust cluster through Mackenzie. A lot of University of Utah people. Really, really incredible work, especially studying how things are changing with the Great Salt Lake right there and all that sort of stuff. Is that something that's important to you? Is
Yes.
that community?
Absolutely, definitely.
No, keep on going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've lived in Salt Lake for at least 2 decades now, and so it definitely means a lot to me. There have been a lot of changes just since I've been there, and so being able to see that change and being able to help make a positive impact is definitely important to me for sure.
Does that encourage you to take this science path?
Yes, definitely. So as you know, snow is definitely important to Utah, and so being able to quantify that and be able to see how we can help our snowpack is definitely important.
Let's talk about snow. What are you presenting here today?
So today I'm talking about using LiDAR intensity to derive snow grain size and then ultimately albedo, which helps us understand snow melt rates. So not only how much snow is melting, but when that snow is melting. And to do that, we're using LiDAR, as I mentioned. Usually it's done using hyperspectral data. Hyperspectral is the standard to get grain size and albedo, but we are also using LiDAR to collect snow depth. And so since we already have our LiDAR data set, we thought, well, maybe we can use this as a supplement to our hyperspectral data. Sorry.
No, that's great. So I can follow up right from that
Yes.
because I talked to a couple of people today who are working in Hubbard Brook, again with Dr. Jacobs as well, who are doing snow mapping.
Yes.
Using some of the same technology
Exactly.
and the snow depth and microclimates. And so this is kind of the final piece of all of that is how big the snow grains. You refer to them as snow grains, not snowflakes. Is there a difference between a snowflake and a snow grain?
I don't know if I'm an expert on this, but I would say I feel like the snow grain is more microscopic. The snowflake is all of it together.
So you're looking at microscopic information using drones and LiDAR. How do you do that?
So with LiDAR intensity, we've done this before at a wavelength of 1064 nanometers. And essentially, this wavelength goes right through an ice absorption feature in our spectral signature. And so if we can look at that and look at the reflectance that we're getting in our LiDAR intensity, if it's relatively high, we can assume this grain size is relatively small. And if it's a lower reflectance, then we can assume a larger grain size. So as I mentioned, we did this before with 1064 nanometers, and now we're trying new wavelengths with UAVs, and that's at 905 nanometers and 1515 nanometers. So the 905 is looking great. The 1515, the shortwave infrared, there's not much reflectance there, so the results are a little bit messier.
That's so small. How do you think about how small that is in your mind?
It's
how
hard
do you
to
imagine it?
It's hard to imagine. I don't know.
It's a calculation.
Yes, we'll trust the instrument.
That's nice. One of the things that's so important about this is how much snow is held, the snow water equivalent in that. How do these measurements help determine how much water is going to come out of that snow?
That's a great question. So with LiDAR, we have snow depth, of course, so we can see how deep the snow is. And then with snow intensity and getting that LiDAR grain size and albedo, we're getting those snow surface properties on top. So being able to combine the two, looking at snow depth, can help us get to snow water equivalent.
And that means we know reservoirs when they're going to get their stuff, when ski resorts can't do their thing anymore. Is that?
Exactly.
Do you think people are really putting the connection of how changing snow is with the changing economic and cultural things in our world around us?
It's hard. I think there might be a little bit of a disconnect. I think sometimes people just focus on what's right in front of them, but being able to take a step back and look at the larger picture and how that makes a big impact is important to remember.
As you said, you've lived in the region where you do for about 20 years.
Yes.
You've seen the changes around you, all the things happening in the world. How do you stay hopeful for the future?
That's a great question. How do I stay hopeful? I think everyone has good intentions at heart. So I think being able to educate people and let them know why the snow is changing, how it's changing, how fast, and what we can do to make a difference is important. So as long as we get the message out there, I think everyone at their core wants to make Salt Lake and the world a better place. So
One of the things that fascinates me about snow is you think it's warmer outside, so the snow's going to melt. But I've learned that that's not necessarily the case.
Yes.
It's how much the snow reflects.
Yes.
Do you
So solar
explain?
radiation.
Do you explain that to a lot of people all the time when they're like,
Yes.
"Why is it?" Tell me a little bit more about that, and tell why. How does it work that way? Why isn't it
Sure.
just warm and it melts?
Sure. So it's really interesting because I feel like you think, oh, it's warm outside, so all the snow will melt today. But it's really just the solar radiation that is melting the snow. So for example, if you look at mountains, you'll notice that the northern slopes, where you don't get much solar radiation, the snow will hang out there for quite some time. But on the southern slopes, where the sun is shining directly on it, it will absorb that snowpack much faster. So.
Is it a tip that you can use when you want to clean your driveway? Can you put like dust from the fireplace out there?
Actually, I'm house hunting right now, and it's nice to think about which way the garage is facing because I don't want to be shoveling any more than I have to.
It's an amazing application of science in
Yes.
real life. Well, last question, and then you get back to your poster, which is what
Sure.
you're here to do.
Yes.
Thank you for taking some time
Of
out.
course.
What fascinates you about this work?
I really love remote sensing. I love being able to see the Earth from a different perspective. Being able to see the Earth from different wavelengths as well that our eyes can't detect is also really fascinating to me. It's nice to know that there's much more than we can understand, and that there's more to explore. There's always more to explore. So that's really exciting to me too. And to know that we can make an impact.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Yes. Ooh.